Welcome back, everybody, to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something that I think we all need a little reminder of sometime.
Oh, yeah,
Trusting in God's love,
for sure.
especially when the world, feels a little bit like a roller coaster.
Yeah, yeah.
And to help us with that, we're going to be going deep into this devotional
Okay.
from prayray.com,
Prairie.
specifically the one for November 30th, 2024.
Oh, cool. November 30th. Yeah,
No.
2024.
Yeah.
You picked a good one.
Okay.
This devotional,
Yeah.
it's not just some abstract theological lecture.
Right.
It really tries to make these big ideas about God's love relevant to your everyday life.
Okay, so let's unpack the core message here.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway from this devotional?
Well, this devotional is all about the idea that God's love is a constant.
Okay.
Think of it like an anchor.
Okay.
No matter how rough the seas get,
Right.
that anchor keeps you grounded.
That's a great image.
Yeah.
I think we can all relate to needing that kind of stability in our lives.
Absolutely.
So how does the devotional approach this idea of God's love as an anchor? Does it have a specific structure?
It does. It
Right.
starts with this verse
Okay.
from 2 Thessalonians 3:5,
Okay.
which talks about God directing our hearts
Okay.
into his love
Right.
and Christ's perseverance. And
Okay.
it uses that verse to launch into these really practical sections on understanding God's love,
Okay.
trusting even when things are tough,
Right.
and finding peace in that trust.
Got it.
It's like a roadmap.
And speaking of roadmaps, I noticed that on prayray.com,
Yeah.
this devotional is part of a whole collection of resources
Oh, yeah.
on prayer and faith.
Mm-hmm.
They have sections for daily prayers,
Wow.
family prayers,
Yeah.
even praise songs. So it seems like they're really trying to provide a more holistic approach to spiritual growth, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. This devotional fits right into that.
Okay.
It's all about nurturing a personal relationship with God.
Right.
But let's get to the heart of it.
Yeah.
How does this devotional define God's love?
Yeah, because I feel like that term gets thrown around a lot.
Right.
But what does it actually mean,
What does it actually mean?
Yeah.
Well, the devotional breaks it down into three key qualities:
Okay.
unconditional,
Okay.
sacrificial,
Mm-hmm.
and endless.
Okay.
It's not about what you do or how good you are.
Right.
God's love is just,
It just is.
it's just there.
Yeah.
And they really emphasize that Jesus Christ is the ultimate example
Right.
of this kind of love
Right.
through his life, death, and resurrection.
Okay, but I gotta be honest.
Yeah.
Endless love.
Mm,
That's a tough one for me to wrap my head around.
sure.
In our human relationships, love always seems to have limits,
Yeah.
conditions, you know?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
We're so used to, I'll love you if.
Yeah.
But the devotional is saying God's love is different.
Okay.
It's not a transaction.
Okay.
It just is.
He just is.
It's like,
Yeah.
imagine trying to measure the ocean with a teaspoon.
You can't.
Yeah.
God's love is like that.
Wow.
Too vast to comprehend.
Okay, I'm going to have to sit with that one for a bit.
Yeah.
So the devotional defines God's love,
Yeah.
but then it also talks about trusting that love, right?
Yes.
And I feel like that's where things get tricky,
Okay.
because life isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
You're right.
Yeah.
And the devotional doesn't shy away from that.
Okay.
It acknowledges that trusting God's love can be really hard,
Right.
especially when you're going through tough times.
Right. Because if God's love is so powerful, why do
Yeah.
bad things still happen?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Where's that anchor when you feel like you're drowning?
Yeah, that's a question a lot of people wrestle with.
Right.
And honestly, there are no easy answers.
Figured as much.
But the devotional offers some guidance.
Okay.
It encourages us to remember that anchor analogy.
Okay.
When those storms of life hit,
Yeah.
that's when we need to cling to that anchor even tighter.
So not focus on the storm itself.
But on what's keeping us from being swept away.
Exactly. It's about remembering God's character,
Okay.
his faithfulness,
Yeah.
his goodness,
Right.
even when your circumstances are screaming something different.
Yeah.
Think about a time you felt really anxious,
Okay.
maybe about work, family, anything.
Yeah.
How could remembering God's love, that unshakable support, change how you approach that situation? That's what this devotional is getting at.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's not about ignoring the reality of the storm,
right.
but about finding that source of strength within, that confidence that comes from knowing you're not alone.
Yeah,
But, and maybe this is just me,
sure.
that still feels really hard sometimes.
Yeah, I get that.
Can you give an example of how this might actually play out in someone's life?
Sure, imagine you're going through a job loss
Yeah.
or a serious illness, maybe even just a period of intense anxiety.
Right.
Your natural reaction might be to doubt, to question where God is in all of this.
For sure.
And the devotional says those feelings are normal.
Okay.
They don't change God's love for you.
Oh, I think we've all been there.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when it's crucial to turn towards God's love,
Okay.
to remind yourself of his promises,
Right.
to seek his presence.
Yeah.
It's a choice to trust,
Okay.
even when your feelings are screaming otherwise.
So it's an active choice
It is.
to trust even when it feels impossible.
Exactly. It's not passive.
Okay.
It's a decision to believe in something bigger than yourself,
Right.
even when you can't fully see it.
Wow. Okay. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And what happens when we choose to trust even when it's hard?
Mm-hmm.
What does the devotional say about that?
It talks about a deep, abiding peace
Okay.
that settles over you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the absence of storms,
Right.
but the calmness in your heart, even as the storm rages.
So it's not about pretending everything is fine,
Yeah.
but about finding a source of strength within a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're not alone.
Exactly. And that peace isn't just a nice feeling.
Yeah.
It empowers you to live more fully, to love more deeply,
Right.
and to navigate life's complexities with greater resilience.
So if this kind of peace is possible,
Yeah.
how do we tap into it?
That's a good question.
Where do we even start?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The devotional actually offers a beautiful prayer as a guide,
Oh, okay.
a way to seek a deeper understanding of God's love
Yeah.
and ask for the strength to trust his guidance.
I noticed that prayer too.
Yeah.
Just reading it, I felt this sense of calm wash over me. It's like an invitation to let go of your worries and rest in God's care, you know?
That's the power of prayer.
Yeah.
It's a direct line to God,
Right.
a way to express your deepest desires and anxieties and open yourself up to his presence.
That's beautiful.
The devotional really emphasizes making prayer a regular practice.
Okay.
It's a way to cultivate trust.
So it's not just about reading the words in this devotional,
Right.
but about actively engaging with them,
Yeah.
making them personal, and allowing them to shape our own spiritual journeys.
Precisely, the devotional provides a framework,
Okay.
but it's up to each individual to take those words
Right.
and apply them to their own life.
That's a great place to pause for now.
Darn.
We've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah, we have.
but there's still so much to explore.
Lots to explore.
What do you say? We take a quick break and then come back
That's good.
to dive even deeper into this idea of trusting God's love.
Yeah, let's do it. You know, I was really struck by something you said before the break
Oh, yeah.
about making those words personal. It's not just about intellectually understanding the devotional,
Right.
but about letting it resonate in your heart.
Absolutely. And for me, that happened most strongly with the prayer.
The prayer.
Yeah, there was something about the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't this long, elaborate thing.
Yeah.
It felt real, heartfelt, like a genuine conversation with God.
I totally agree. It felt very accessible,
Yeah.
even if you're new to prayer or
Right.
feeling a bit lost.
Yeah.
There was this line that really got to me
Okay.
about asking God to help us grasp how deep and wide his love is.
Yeah.
It's like acknowledging that we can't fully understand this on our own.
It's almost like saying, God, I know I'm not going to figure this out
Yeah.
with just my own brain.
Right.
I need your help to even begin to see it.
Yes, that's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
The devotional isn't saying we need to have it all figured out.
Okay.
It's about acknowledging our human limitations
Right.
and leaning into that mystery of God's love.
Which honestly is kind of freeing.
It is.
I feel like so much of life is about having the right answers, being in control.
Yeah.
But this is different.
It is. It's like that saying, leap in the net will appear.
Okay.
Sometimes you have to take that first step of faith,
Right.
even if you can't see the whole path laid out in front of you.
And the devotional is assuring us that the net will be there.
Yes.
That support system of God's love.
Right. But it's not blind faith.
Okay.
It's informed trust,
Okay.
built on God's character and promises.
So it's about taking the time to learn who God is,
Yeah.
what he stands for.
Exactly. And understanding what he's already done for us through Jesus.
Right.
From there, that trust can grow and deepen,
Okay.
even when things are tough.
You know, one thing that really resonated with me
Yeah.
is how this devotional doesn't pretend life is easy. It acknowledges those difficulties.
Yeah.
It even uses the word trials.
It does. It's almost like it's saying, look, life can be tough,
Yeah.
but you're not alone.
And that's such an important message,
It is.
especially these days with everything going on in the world.
So much going on.
it's easy to feel overwhelmed,
Hmm.
anxious, lost, even.
It's like having that lifeline, that anchor,
Yeah,
when everything else feels shaky.
right.
And this idea of trusting God's love, it's not just some feel-good concept.
Right.
It's a practical tool
Wow.
for navigating those complexities.
So let's bring this back to our listener.
Okay.
What does this all mean for someone listening right now?
Yeah.
What can they actually take away from this devotional
Mm-hmm.
and apply to their life?
I think the biggest takeaway is that God's love is available to everyone
Okay.
right here, right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter your background, your beliefs, or what you're going through.
Right.
It's not something you have to earn.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gift.
It's like a gift waiting to be unwrapped.
Exactly. And the devotional encourages us to open that gift,
Yeah.
explore it,
Okay.
and let it transform our lives.
But I'm guessing for some people,
Yeah.
there might be hesitation, even fear
Sure.
about accepting that gift.
Yeah.
Maybe they've been hurt, they feel unworthy, or they're just skeptical.
That's completely understandable.
Yeah.
Trust, especially in something as big as God's love,
Right.
doesn't just happen overnight.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
So how do we start that journey?
Yeah.
Where do we begin if we want to experience this kind of trust and peace?
The devotional suggests a few starting points.
Okay.
First, just reflect on God's love.
Okay.
Think about how it's shown up in your life,
Mm-hmm.
even in small ways.
You mean like those moments of unexpected kindness?
Yeah.
Or support from friends and family?
Mhm.
Or even just when you felt a sense of peace or guidance,
Right.
even when you didn't know where it was coming from?
Exactly. Those little glimpses of love
Yeah.
can be like signposts pointing us toward that bigger picture
Right.
of God's love for us.
I like that.
And from there, the devotional suggests making prayer a regular practice.
That's
It's a
right.
way to connect with God,
Mm-hmm.
to express your gratitude, your doubts, your fears,
Yeah.
and just to be present with Him.
So it's about building a relationship,
Yeah.
nurturing that connection,
Mhm.
and letting that trust grow over time.
You got it. It's not about pretending you have it all figured out,
Yeah.
or that everything is perfect.
Right.
It's about taking those small steps day by day
Mm-hmm.
and trusting that God will meet you where you are.
You know, one thing I really appreciated about this devotional is
Yeah.
how practical it is.
Yeah.
It's not just about abstract ideas.
Right.
It actually gives you tools and strategies for applying this trust in your everyday life.
It does. And one of the simplest yet most powerful things it suggests
Okay.
is just reminding yourself of God's love
Okay.
throughout the day.
You mean like creating those little mental sticky notes
Mhm.
that say, God loves you. You're not alone.
Yes,
You're going to be okay.
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like having that little voice of reassurance in your ear,
Yeah.
especially when those doubts and fears start creeping in.
Right. And it doesn't have to be complicated.
It doesn't.
Just pausing to say a silent prayer, taking a deep breath, and remembering God's presence.
Yeah.
Or even just recalling a favorite Bible verse that speaks to God's love.
It's exactly weaving those reminders into the fabric of your day.
Yeah.
Because let's face it,
Yeah.
we all need a little encouragement sometimes.
We do. And the great thing is,
Yeah.
the devotional reminds us that that encouragement, that love is always available.
Mhm.
It's not based on your circumstances, your emotions,
Right.
or even your level of faith at any given moment.
It's a constant, a
Yeah.
bedrock you can build your life on.
An unshakable foundation,
Yeah.
that safe haven you can always return to.
Exactly. And that's why this idea of trusting God's love is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a belief system.
Right.
It has the potential to bring peace, healing, and purpose to your life.
Listening to you talk about this,
Yeah.
it makes me wonder, what are some of the ways people might connect with this idea
Okay.
of trusting God's love? Because it feels like such a personal, intimate concept.
You're right. And I think that's one of the amazing things about faith. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Everyone's journey is unique
Oh.
and unfolds in its own time.
And I think this devotional honors that.
Yeah.
It provides a framework, some
Mhm.
key principles,
Right.
but it encourages you to make it your own,
Yeah.
to find your own meaning and connection.
Exactly. That's why it's so valuable.
Okay.
It's not about dictating beliefs
Right.
or imposing rules.
Yeah.
It's about inviting you to explore this profound concept of God's love
Mm.
and discover what it means for you.
That's a great point to transition to the next part of the devotional,
Okay.
where it digs into how trusting God's love
Yeah.
can empower you to live more fully and face challenges with more resilience.
Yes. And I think that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
It's not just about feeling good.
Right.
It's about seeing how this trust translates into changes in your thoughts,
Okay.
your behavior,
Yeah.
your relationships.
So it's like taking this abstract concept of love
Yes.
and putting it into action.
Exactly. And the devotional offers some really specific examples. For instance, it talks about how trusting God's love can help us overcome fear and anxiety.
How does it explain that connection? Because
Yeah.
fear and anxiety feel so real
Yeah.
and so powerful sometimes.
Well, the devotional suggests that when you truly believe
Yeah.
that you're loved unconditionally by a powerful and benevolent God,
Right.
it loosens fear's grip on you.
Okay.
It's like having this deep inner knowing
Mm-hmm.
that no matter what happens, you're held,
Right.
you're supported,
Yeah.
and ultimately you're going to be okay.
So it's not about pretending the fear doesn't exist.
No.
It's about having this other stronger force
Yes.
to help you deal with it.
The devotional uses a really helpful analogy
Okay.
of a child who is afraid of the dark.
Okay.
When a loving parent comes in and reassures that child,
Right.
the fear doesn't magically disappear,
Right.
but the child feels safer, more secure,
Yeah.
knowing they aren't alone in facing the fear.
That's such a great analogy. And it really highlights the importance of that relationship with God.
Absolutely.
It's not just about believing in some distant being.
Right.
It's about experiencing God's love as a tangible presence.
And the devotional goes on to say
Okay.
that this feeling of security can actually empower you to step out of your comfort zone,
Right.
to take risks and pursue your passions with more confidence.
Because if you know you're loved and supported no matter what,
Yeah.
you're less afraid of failure or rejection.
Precisely, that fear of the unknown loses its power when you have that deep inner assurance.
It's so freeing.
It is.
It's like trust in God's love gives you the courage to be yourself, to pursue your dreams,
Yeah.
and to live authentically.
That's exactly what the devotional is pointing to.
Yeah.
A life rooted in love, purpose, and the knowledge that you're not alone in this journey.
So we've talked about how this trust can help overcome fear
Yeah.
and encourage us to live more boldly.
Hmm.
What other practical benefits does the devotional highlight?
It also talks about how this trust can completely transform your relationships with other people.
Oh, yeah.
It suggests that when you experience God's unconditional love,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier to extend that same grace and love
Okay.
to those around you.
Because you've received it, you're more able to give it.
That's the idea. It's like that love becomes this wellspring inside you,
Okay.
overflowing into your interactions with others.
I like that.
The devotional specifically mentions forgiveness.
Okay.
It says, when you remember how much you've been forgiven by God,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier to forgive others who have hurt you.
It's like that bitterness and resentment
Yeah.
don't have as much power when you're connected to that wellspring
Right.
of God's love and grace.
Exactly. And that's such an important message,
It is.
especially now when the world can feel so divided.
For sure.
The devotional reminds us that we're all loved by God at our core.
So it's not just about a personal relationship with God.
Right.
It's about letting that love flow outward
Yeah.
and impact your relationships.
Yes. And the devotional even suggests
Yeah.
that trusting God's love can give you a greater sense of purpose and meaning in life.
How so?
It explains that when you align yourself with God's will,
Okay.
you tap into a sense of purpose that's bigger than your own limited perspective.
Right.
Like you're part of something much larger.
So it's about finding your place in the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The devotional uses this great analogy of a puzzle piece.
Okay.
By itself, it might not seem like much,
Right.
but when it's connected to all the other pieces,
Yeah.
it contributes to this beautiful and intricate image.
Right.
It's the same with our lives when we connect to God's love and purpose.
I love that. So visual.
Yeah.
And it speaks to that interconnectedness we all crave. We're
Mhm.
all part of something much bigger than ourselves.
And that's where this devotional is ultimately pointing us.
Yeah.
To a life that's not just about individual happiness,
Right.
but about contributing to a greater good, about making a difference in the world that reflects God's love.
It's like taking that love you've received and putting it into action.
Exactly. And the devotional reminds us
Yeah.
that it's not about striving or earning God's favor.
Right.
It's about surrendering to that love,
Okay.
letting it transform you,
Mm-hmm.
and trusting that God will work through you to accomplish his purposes.
I love how that feels so empowering.
It is empowering.
It's like saying, okay, God, I'm here. I'm yours.
Yeah,
Use me. Let your love shine through me.
because it reminds you that you don't have to have it all figured out.
Right.
You don't have to be perfect or have all the answers.
Yeah.
You just have to be open to God's love
Okay.
and willing to trust his guidance.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on something
Okay.
that I know might be on some of our listeners' minds.
Of course. What's that?
We've been talking about trusting God's love,
Yeah,
but that can be a really difficult concept for people who have experienced pain,
right.
suffering, or even trauma in their lives.
Sure.
It can be hard to reconcile the idea of a loving God
Yeah.
with what they've been through.
You're absolutely right. And it's important to acknowledge that there are no easy answers
Right.
when it comes to the question of suffering and faith.
It's definitely not about minimizing or dismissing those experiences
No.
or pretending that everything is okay.
Right. The devotional doesn't try to provide simple answers.
Okay.
Instead, it invites us to wrestle with these questions honestly
Yeah.
and to seek understanding with humility and trust.
So it's okay to have doubts,
Absolutely.
to question, or even to express anger or frustration towards God.
Absolutely. The devotional acknowledges that there will be times when our trust wavers,
Yeah.
when we feel lost or even angry with God.
Right.
Those feelings are normal,
Okay.
and God can handle our honesty.
It's like saying, God, I'm struggling, I don't understand, but I'm still here. I'm still trying to trust.
Exactly. And those honest conversations with God
Yeah.
are often where the deepest growth and transformation happen.
Wow.
It's in those moments of vulnerability. When you're willing to acknowledge your pain and your doubts,
Yeah.
that God's love can reach you most deeply.
You know, this whole conversation is reminding me of how much I love the honesty of this devotional.
I agree.
It's about being real with God, even in our messiness.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to a deeper, more authentic relationship with God,
Right.
built on honesty, vulnerability,
Mm.
and a willingness to trust even when things are hard.
I think that's a powerful message for anyone listening.
I agree, because at its core, this devotional is about the power of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the possibility of finding peace, meaning, and purpose,
Right.
even in a world that can feel chaotic.
Okay. I feel like we could keep talking about this for hours,
It could.
but I know we need to wrap things up.
Okay, sounds good.
What are some key takeaways you'd like to leave our listeners with?
First and foremost, God's love is a constant,
Okay.
a steady force that's available to everyone.
Right.
Doesn't matter your past, your present,
Mm.
or how strong your faith feels right now.
Okay.
It's a free gift,
Right.
and all you have to do is receive it.
And receiving that love can be as simple as taking a moment to acknowledge God's presence,
Yeah.
expressing gratitude for the good things in your life,
Mm-hmm.
or asking for guidance and support when you're struggling.
Exactly. And the devotional reminds us that as you open yourself to that love,
Yeah.
it will empower you to live more fully, to love others more deeply, and to face life's challenges with more resilience and hope.
It's like having that inner compass, that guiding light to
Exactly.
help you through the tough times.
I encourage everyone listening to check out this devotional from PrayRay.com
Yeah.
and allow its message to speak to your heart.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Okay.
But before we say goodbye,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
This devotional has been all about trusting God's love,
Hmm.
but I think it's also a beautiful invitation to consider how we can be reflections of that love in the world.
Oh, wow.
How can we embody God's love in our own lives,
Yeah.
in our interactions with others, and in the choices we make each day?
That's such a beautiful and challenging question.
It is.
I believe that as we open ourselves to God's love,
Mhm.
we naturally become conduits of that love,
Okay.
sharing it with the world around us.
I love that image.
Yeah.
Becoming conduits of God's love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a powerful reminder that we all have the capacity to make a difference,
Me too.
to be beacons of hope,
Yes.
and to share that transformative love with others.
Beautifully said.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive
Of course.
into trusting God's love.
Yeah.
We hope this has been a meaningful and thought-provoking conversation for you.
Me too.
And we encourage you to keep seeking, questioning, and growing
Yes.
on your own unique journey of faith.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember, this deep dive is just a starting point. I really encourage you to check out the devotional for yourself on PrayRay.com.
Yeah.
Keep exploring this idea of trusting in God's love.
Absolutely.
It's worth it.
It is.
What stands out to you from everything we've discussed?
What's fascinating is that trusting God's love
Yeah.
isn't just about a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Right.
It's about this active choice to believe,
Right.
even when things are tough.
Yeah.
It's almost like a muscle you have to keep exercising.
Yeah.
You know?
That's such a great point.
Yeah.
It makes me think about those times when I've felt really lost and alone,
Mm.
and how remembering that God's love is always there, that
Mhm.
constant anchor has
Yeah.
helped me through.
And it's not about having all the answers either.
Right.
The devotional's really honest about that.
Yeah.
There will be times when you question, when you doubt,
Yeah.
when you even get angry.
Right.
And that's okay.
That's so important.
It is.
This isn't about pretending everything is perfect.
Right.
It's about being real with God even in those messy moments.
Exactly. It's about that raw honesty, that vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's where real growth happens.
Right.
And the devotional actually points us to a really practical way to cultivate that honesty.
Okay.
Prayer.
Yes, we talked about that earlier,
Yeah,
but I want to emphasize it again.
for sure.
Prayer isn't just about reciting words.
Right.
It's about connecting with God,
Mm-hmm.
pouring out your heart,
Yeah.
and being open to hearing what he has to say.
It's like a conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most powerful conversations are the ones where
Yeah.
you're willing to be vulnerable, to share your doubts and fears, and to listen with an open heart.
You know, one thing that really struck me about the devotional's approach to prayer
Yeah.
is that it's not about asking for things.
Right.
It's more about seeking a deeper understanding of God's love
Mm.
and asking for the strength to trust in his guidance.
That's what makes this devotional so unique.
Yeah.
It shifts your focus from what can God do for me
Right.
to who is God,
Right.
and how can I align myself with his love and purpose.
It's like a complete paradigm shift, isn't it?
It is.
And I think that's where the real power lies.
I agree.
Because when you start to see God's love as this constant, unwavering force,
Mm-hmm.
it changes everything.
It changes how you see yourself,
Right.
how you relate to others,
Mm.
and how you approach the challenges in your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's something worth exploring for anyone,
Right.
regardless of their current faith journey.
I completely agree. So if you're listening
Yeah.
and this idea of trusting God's love has sparked something in you,
Mm-hmm.
I encourage you to take that next step.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's revisiting the devotional on PrayRay.com.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's spending some time in prayer.
Yeah.
Maybe it's simply talking to a friend about what you're learning.
Those are all great ideas.
Yeah.
The important thing is to keep seeking, to
Right.
keep exploring, and to allow God's love to work in your life.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
But remember, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Keep the conversation going.
Keep trusting.
Would be growing. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive. And remember, this deep dive is just a starting point. I really encourage you to check out the devotional for yourself on PrayRay.com. Keep exploring this idea of trusting in God's love. It's worth it. What stands out to you from everything we've discussed?
What's fascinating is that trusting God's love isn't just about a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's about this active choice to believe even when things are tough. It's almost like a muscle you have to keep exercising, you know?
That's such a great point. It makes me think about those times when I felt really lost and alone, and how remembering that God's love is always there, that constant anchor has helped me through.
And it's not about having all the answers either. The devotional is really honest about that. There will
Yeah.
be times when you question, when you doubt, when you even get angry, and that's okay.
That's so important. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about being real with God, even in those messy moments.
Exactly. It's about that raw honesty, that vulnerability.
Mm.
That's where real growth happens.
Yeah.
And the devotional actually points us to a really practical way to cultivate that honesty prayer.
Yes. We talked about that earlier, but I want to emphasize it again. Prayer isn't just about reciting words. It's about connecting with God, pouring out your heart, and being open to hearing what he has to say.
Like a conversation.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most powerful conversations are the ones where you're willing to be vulnerable, to share your doubts and fears, and to listen with an open heart.
You know, one thing that really struck me about the devotional's approach to prayer is that it's not about asking for things. It's more about seeking a deeper understanding of God's love and asking for the strength to trust in his guidance.
That's what makes this devotional so unique. It shifts your focus from what can God do for me to who is God and how can I align myself with his love and purpose.
It's like a complete paradigm shift, isn't it? And I think that's where the real power lies. Because when you start to see God's love as this constant, unwavering force, it changes everything.
It does. It changes how you see yourself, how you relate to others, and how you approach the challenges in your life. And I think that's something worth exploring for anyone, regardless of their current faith journey.
I completely agree. So if you're listening and this idea of trusting God's love has sparked something in you, I encourage you to take that next step. Maybe it's revisiting the devotional on PrayRay.com. Maybe it's spending some time in prayer. Maybe it's simply talking to a friend about what you're learning.
Those are all great ideas.
Yeah.
The important thing is to keep seeking, to keep exploring, and to allow God's love to work in your life.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive, but remember, this is just the beginning. Keep the conversation going.
Keep trusting.
Keep growing.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.